Amanda wiped her tears and forced herself to exhale slowly, though her lungs felt as though they were pinned under a boulder. Just 2 hours ago, she had received the news that her contract at the local manufacturing plant was terminated due to budget cuts. It wasn't personal, they had assured her, yet, in the space of a single phone call, she'd lost the primary means of supporting herself and her 6-year-old daughter, Eva. Staring at the empty living room, she allowed the anxiety to wash over her, but only for a moment. She knew that if she fell apart completely, there would be no one else to hold things together. As a single mother, she played both roles, provider and caretaker, and she simply had to find a way forward. For over a decade, Amanda had relied on her steady paycheck and her own grit. She had raised Ava in a small but cozy rental house on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. Work was never glamorous, but the stability allowed her to put food on the table and keep Eva clothed. Added to that, Amanda took pride in providing her daughter with something more intangible, a sense of security. Now, as she looked at her bank account, the funds looked dangerously low. There wasn't enough money to stretch more than a month or so. Stress thrummed through her veins, but a faint wobble in the bedroom door caught her eye. Eva stood there, her brown eyes wide. "Mommy, are you okay?" She clutched a worn teddy bear that Amanda had passed down from her own childhood. Amanda mustered a smile, though tears still clung to her eyelashes. "I'm okay," Amanda answered, reaching for her child's hand. "I lost my job today, sweetie, but I promise we'll be fine." Eva's small face pinched with concern. "You always say that," she whispered. Yet Amanda detected a measure of trust in her daughter's eyes, which made her resolve strengthen. She had to keep her promise, no matter how slim the odds felt at that moment. Throughout the following week, Amanda submitted job applications by the dozen. The local economy had sunk in recent months, meaning every open position had a queue of desperate people all chasing it. She visited the public library daily to look up leads, scanning shelves for self-improvement books, anything that could advise her on how to navigate unemployment as a single parent. Ava accompanied her after school, coloring quietly at a table nearby. When the library closed, the two of them returned home, where Amanda would cook simple meals from whatever she had in her pantry. She had always loved cooking. From the time she was a child, she had been enchanted by her grandmother's stories of old family recipes. The memory of dough pressing between her small fingers as she helped roll out biscuits had long been a source of comfort. In the swirling chaos of job searches and mounting bills, the simple act of stirring a pot or chopping vegetables brought a calm sense of normalcy. One Friday night, after a fruitless day of interviews, Amanda tried to distract herself by teaching Ava how to make marinara sauce from scratch. She showed her how to chop onions carefully, measure out oregano and basil, and swirl the sauce so it wouldn't burn. Ava giggled when the tomatoes popped in the pan, splashing bright red flecks. Before long, the kitchen was filled with the aroma of garlic and simmering tomatoes. "Mommy, this is fun," Eva exclaimed. "Let's show my friends." That sparked an idea. Amanda remembered seeing an online post about community-based skill-sharing sessions to help reduce feelings of depression and isolation among the unemployed. They weren't formal or expensive, but the organizers offered a space for people to teach one another hobbies and trades free of charge. Amanda's only distinct skill was cooking, confident cooking that drew from deep family traditions. It was something, at least, and she suspected there were others in the neighborhood who might like to learn. Maybe she could even use it to form some connections that might lead to job opportunities later. After all, cooking for others felt like a meaningful way to stay hopeful. The next morning, she taped a note in the window of the local grocery store, beneath the Lost and Found section. It read, "Want to learn cooking basics? Free classes every Tuesday at 4 p.m. No cost, just bring yourself." She left her phone number and address, half expecting no one to respond. However, by Monday evening, her phone had rung 5 times, each call from someone curious about the free lesson. Most were unemployed folks like her. Some had families, others lived alone. All of them shared a desire to learn something new, or at least enjoy an activity that gave them a break from life's pressures. When Tuesday rolled around, Amanda was ready. She had pulled her kitchen table to one side to create more space. She set out different vegetables, mixing bowls, spoons, knives, and a recipe for a hearty vegetable soup. Eva helped by stacking plastic bowls at each makeshift workstation. At 3:55 p.m., a few strangers trickled in, looking tentative. Amanda recognized a man named Charles, who held an advertisement for her class in one hand like a permission slip. "This is the place?" he asked, appearing slightly uncomfortable. "Never taken a cooking class in someone's kitchen." Amanda flashed a welcoming smile. "Welcome. Come right in." Before long, 7 people, 3 men and 4 women, crowded into her small kitchen. They had introduced themselves, their ages ranging from early 20s to mid 60s. Some had been laid off, like Amanda, some were retired and bored, and one had never really learned how to cook a proper meal. Amanda's cheeks glowed with a mix of excitement and nerves. She'd never taught a group before, but she quickly discovered that her love of cooking fueled a natural ease. She explained each ingredient, inviting everyone to roll up their sleeves, chop vegetables, stir the pot, and season to taste. To Amanda's delight, the session far exceeded her expectations. At the end of it all, everybody shared bowls of comforting soup. Jokes and laughter laced the conversation, punctuating the cozy atmosphere. The emptiness that had consumed her since her layoff felt miles away. In those 2 hours, her kitchen brimmed with purpose, and she could almost see sparks of hope dancing in people's eyes. Word about the free cooking class spread quickly. By the second lesson, more than a dozen participants came, crowding into her home. Amanda realized that if this continued, she'd have to move half the session outdoors. But she welcomed the growth with open arms. On the following Tuesday, she showed everyone how to make homemade bread. Kneading dough side by side, they shared job hunting stories and experiences. Eva scampered around, offering water to those who had flour on their hands, thoroughly enjoying being part of the gathering. "It's incredible what you're doing here," said an older woman, Mary, pressing her hands into the dough, her wrinkled brow smoothed for a moment, replaced by a bright smile. "I've been lonely ever since my husband passed, and these classes have given me a reason to get up and go somewhere." Charles, the man who first arrived at Amanda's door, nodded. "I've only known how to make scrambled eggs until now. This place is giving me more confidence. Maybe I'll impress someone with my cooking one day," he joked. Still, he seemed genuinely grateful for her efforts. Amanda was humbled by their gratitude. Yet a small part of her continued to worry about her own finances. She was burning through her savings to buy extra ingredients. Though she kept the lessons free, she considered charging a small fee. But the faces of her class members, each struggling in their own way, kept her from following that path. Instead, she opted for frugality, buying items on sale, improvising with what she already had, and asking participants to bring any spare produce they could offer. The synergies soon became self-sustaining as the group started coordinating what each person could contribute. One brought a few bags of onions, another donated bags of flour, and yet another brought leftover herbs from a community garden. Bit by bit, the burden on Amanda's wallet lessened. Before she knew it, these winsome, unplanned classes evolved into a weekly highlight for the entire neighborhood. Early each Tuesday, Amanda would receive calls and texts from class members, confirming what they should bring or offering to pass out flyers to neighbors. The gatherings weren't just about cooking. People lingered after the food was done, sipping tea or coffee and offering job leads to others. The front yard became a place where children played together while parents on strangers bonded over shared struggles and triumphs. Tuesday eventually became a day that everyone anticipated, and Amanda's kitchen transformed into a warm, bustling hub that radiated friendship and support. One day, after a month of holding these cooking sessions, Amanda heard a soft knock at her front door. She opened it to find a local reporter named Rachel from the town's small newspaper. An older gentleman from the class had tipped her off to the story, praising the miracle in a single mom's kitchen. "Is it true that you teach free cooking classes from your home?" Rachel asked, her notepad at the ready. Amanda felt a seed of self-consciousness form. "Yes, but it's really just a small gathering of neighbors." Rachel smiled. "That's not what I've heard. People say you're giving them hope, a sense of belonging, and a new skill. I'd love to do an article about it." So, Amanda felt shy about the coverage. She recognized the potential benefits. If more people learned about these cooking classes, they might join in the supportive environment or even bring job opportunities for those in need. So she agreed to an interview, explaining in detail how her own unemployment spurred her to open her kitchen and how attendees donated produce to keep it running. She emphasized that it was a group effort, that the real heroes were those who continued to show up and share their stories. When the article was published, Amanda was stunned by the response. Overnight, she became somewhat of a local sensation, with neighbors stopping her on the street to thank her and more people wanting to join the classes. A local restaurant owner, Miguel, visited her kitchen to offer his support and some commercial grade utensils. He admired her dedication, and although his own restaurant was small, he promised to donate any leftover ingredients he could spare. He also spoke about how cooking had helped him through tough times. Amanda felt overwhelmed by such generosity, marveling at how she had gone from losing her job to creating something that brought the community together. A ripple effect took hold. Families who rarely interacted with each other now exchanged recipes and asked about one another's lives. Teenagers accompanied their parents to the Tuesday gatherings, learning life skills they'd otherwise never pick up in school. Mary, who had once felt isolated in her widowhood, joined a volunteer group to cater small events, using her newly acquired baking skills. Charles, emboldened by his growing confidence in the kitchen, started an online presence where he documented his culinary experiments and job search adventures. He often credited Amanda for lighting the spark that got him off the couch and back into life. Each story cultivated another sense of hope for Amanda. Still, no matter how uplifting the classes were, bills had to be paid. Amanda was running on fumes financially. She managed rent for another month, thanks to cutting every superfluous expense, but she dreaded a future conversation with her landlord. One chilly evening, after tucking Eva into bed, Amanda sat hunched over the kitchen table, scanning job listings on her laptop. The screen glowed a faint blue, revealing the fresh lines of worry in her face. She had applied to at least 20 positions in the past 2 weeks and had an interview for a customer service role the next day. She prayed for some relief. Exhausted, she closed her laptop and stared at the counter. Despite her fears, the arrangement of mixing bowls, measuring cups, and half-written recipes gave her a sliver of hope. These everyday items had become symbols of a project that somehow shone a light on the best in people. She only wished the same light would guide her to a steady paycheck. Sleep beckoned, but before she turned out the light, her phone buzzed with a text. She looked down to see a message from a woman named Lydia, one of the newer attendees. Hey, Amanda, do you cater private events? My sister is planning a baby shower, and we'd love you to handle the food if you're interested. We'd pay, of course. Let me know. Amanda felt her heart catch speed. She sat up straighter, rereading the text. She had never considered event catering, but she knew how to cook for a crowd, especially after hosting her weekly sessions, and any extra earnings could offset her dire financial reality. Filled with excitement, she called Lydia back and they hammered out the details. The baby shower was in a couple of weeks, giving Amanda just enough time to organize a menu and do the shopping. Over the next few days, she surveyed her cooking class friends, and they offered their suggestions, resources, and even extra help to prepare. Charles volunteered to be her sous chef, while Mary promised to bring the best homemade pies. Miguel, the restaurant owner, offered to let her use some of his serving trays. The entire community rallied behind her, wanting to see her succeed. On the day of the event, Amanda arrived at the venue early and set up a dazzling array of dishes. Salads filled with crisp greens and fresh vegetables, mini quiches, baked ziti, fruit platters, and Mary's famous pies as the sweet finale. The guests at the baby shower marveled at the spread. By the time the party ended, Amanda received heartfelt thank yous, along with a generous payment that left her breathless with gratitude. As she packed up her supplies, she could hardly believe the turn her life had taken. She had lost her stable job, but found something that actually made her feel alive. Word spread once again, and soon more people asked if she catered small events. Although she was cautious about overcommitting, Amanda accepted enough requests to pay her bills. These side jobs didn't happen daily, but they were consistent enough to keep her afloat. Above all, her weekly cooking classes continued as she believed it was crucial to give back in the same way others had helped her. The knowledge sharing sessions became a cornerstone of the neighborhood. People began referring to Amanda's home as the Kitchen of Hope, a place where tight funds or personal hardships were softened by laughter, good food, and empathy. One Tuesday evening, well after the class had ended and everyone else had gone home, Ava pulled at Amanda's sleeve. "Mommy," she whispered, "I'm proud of you." Her eyes shone with admiration, typically reserved for storybook heroes. Those words made Amanda's breathing hitch with emotion. She dropped to one knee and hugged her daughter tightly. Planting a kiss on Ava's forehead, she felt an overwhelming sense of contentment, despite her complicated situation. In the months that followed, Amanda's life continued to transform. She received increasing numbers of catering referrals. Sometimes she catered office lunches, other times small events like birthday parties or family reunions. Through it all, she kept the classes going, adapting recipes for the changing seasons, teaching folks how to make warming stews in the winter and vibrant salads in the summer. The group grew so large that they had to move it to a local community center on special occasions, especially if the weather was poor and the tiny house couldn't hold more than a handful of people. Yet, during pleasant weather, Amanda insisted on hosting in her own home, believing that the closeness of everyone huddled together in a small kitchen was part of the magic. Many participants gave heartfelt feedback about how the cooking classes lifted them out of depression, taught them essential kitchen skills, or led to friendships they never would have found otherwise. Amanda felt proud, but she was also quick to acknowledge that she didn't do it alone. Every single attendee brought something unique. Where once she saw only her own misfortune, she now saw the power of community and the richness of human connection. Over time, she noticed that the children who came along with their parents also found joy in these sessions. They would help measure out flour or crack eggs under careful supervision, gaining life skills while their parents learned or relearned the basics. The older kids often stuck around to help clean up, which was no small task considering the kitchen frequently looked as though a flour bomb had detonated. Insisting on working together to tidy everything, the participants refused to let Amanda shoulder the burden alone. Slowly, Amanda saved enough money to stabilize her finances. She still had to be careful with expenses, but she no longer lay awake at night wondering how to afford rent. She was, in effect, juggling the responsibilities of being a single mother, a teacher, and a small caterer, yet she had never felt more fulfilled. There was even talk among the class participants about one day opening a small community cafe, a shared dream where people from all walks of life could come to learn or simply enjoy a warm meal. Whenever this dream was discussed, Amanda's eyes lit up. Whether it would happen next month or in a couple of years, she knew she wanted to be part of it. Her newfound sense of purpose radiated in everything she did. She set up a small website listing her catering services, but she made sure to clarify that her free cooking sessions remained a non-profit endeavor funded through community donations. While she appreciated any ingredient or monetary help from the participants, she refused to set a price. It was her way of paying forward the kindness the neighborhood had shown her when she was at her lowest. She believed firmly that giving people something to believe in, something to aspire to, was more valuable than a few extra dollars in her pocket. One crisp morning in early autumn, Amanda was dropping Eva off at school when her phone buzzed. Checking it, she found a message from a large nonprofit agency focused on nutrition and food security. They had heard about her story from the local restaurant owner, Miguel, and wanted her to speak at a regional conference about community engagement and grassroots food initiatives. They offered to cover any travel and lodging along with a modest speaking fee. Amanda's first reaction was to laugh in disbelief. She had never considered herself an expert or a public speaker. She was just a single mom who had lost her job and started teaching folks how to cook in her kitchen. Yet, in the eyes of those who heard her story, she embodied the power of determination and solidarity. She pondered the prospect for a few days, wavering between curiosity and outright nerves. After confiding in her cooking class group, they unanimously pushed her to accept. "You have a voice worth sharing," Mary told her gently, her eyes glimmering with pride. Charles vowed he would sit in the front row, cheering her on if he could. Encouraged by their support, Amanda scheduled the talk and began preparing the content she'd present. On the day of the conference, Amanda dressed in her modest best and brought Eva along, since the nonprofit had generously agreed to arrange childcare. Standing behind the podium, she scanned the room full of professionals, community leaders, and fellow dreamers. Her palms were damp, but she swallowed her fear. Then, in a steady voice, she spoke about how her journey started: the struggle of losing her job, the unexpected spark of teaching free cooking lessons, and how it blossomed into a thriving network of neighbors who supported one another. She emphasized the importance of shared resources, the magic of communal spirit, and how a simple home cooked meal could restore dignity and motivation. In the moments of quiet that followed, she sensed the impact her words had made on the audience. Some people blinked back tears, others nodded with understanding, as if they'd felt the same struggles in their own lives. At the end of her speech, a ripple of applause filled the room. Amanda felt tears threatening to spill over, but she stood proudly, acknowledging the ovation, while thinking of the many hands that came together in her kitchen each week. When she stepped away from the podium, Eva ran up to hug her mother's waist, burying her face in Amanda's shirt, wrapping her arms around her daughter. Amanda felt a warmth spread through her that banished all the lingering remnants of the insecurity and fear she'd once felt. She had dreamed of stability and found something bigger, something unshakable in the bonds of shared meals and shared stories. Even as she gathered her notes to leave, people crowded around to shake her hand and request her contact information. Representatives from different communities talked about replicating her model, asking for tips on organizing free cooking lessons and ways to sustain them. Amanda answered them earnestly, offering every ounce of guidance she could. In that moment, she understood that the seeds she had planted in her humble kitchen might sprout in neighborhoods all across the state, perhaps even beyond. It was a reminder that in times of crisis, a single person with a single idea could shift the course of entire communities. Returning to her home that evening, Amanda opened the door to find a small group of neighbors waiting to congratulate her. They had prepared a potluck, each bringing a dish they had learned to cook in her classes. The aroma of freshly baked bread and simmering sauces filled the air, reminding Amanda of everything she held dear. They laughed, chatted, and shared the day's highlights, eventually settling into a comfortable circle in the living room. There, Eva presented her mom with a homemade card that depicted Amanda whisking batter in a large bowl, surrounded by smiling faces. As twilight deepened, Amanda reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. Losing her job had initially felt like a disaster, but it had led her to discover not just a hidden passion, but an unbreakable bond with her community. Though life would inevitably throw more challenges her way, Amanda recognized that she was no longer alone. Her tiny kitchen had become a safe harbor for everyone, a place where hope was stirred into every pot, kneaded into every dough, and poured into every cup. Sighing contentedly, she glanced one last time at the gathered faces. The sight struck her with a gentle certainty. Collectively, they had built something far greater than any single person could have achieved on their own. In the warmth of that evening, surrounded by the comforting sense of home-cooked food and spirited conversation, Amanda understood that she had found her calling, and it was a purpose that would sustain her and her neighbors for years to come.